Put that up there so you guys behave. Yeah, that's clear. Okay, for those of you who don't have much time, let me give the headline. I think busing immigrants to sanctuary-type cities, blue states, is a brilliant idea. Excellent idea. What else? Equity obsession. Yeah, I think it's okay to make people feel bad when it comes to meritocracy, that some people are better than other people based on merit, and some people will never be as good as other people based on merit. And number 3, sometimes you do blame the victim. Yes, you blame the victim sometimes. Okay, thanks for coming out. Rest in peace, Tim Keller. Yes, he's dead. I wonder if he and Ravi Zacharias are in the same place right now. By the way, I will talk about other things. And let's have fun today, and people can call in. Tim Keller is the type of apologist that I think I would hate to talk to. He had that wordiness and bloviation, and he leans left. He's just like, yuck. He's too touchy-feely for me. Sorry, guys. Sorry. Too touchy-feely for me. He's almost like crying when he talks. That's maybe hyperbole. But let's get started with, and if you want to hop in and disagree, you're welcome to. Man, I hope people who disagree do call in, because it's boring when it doesn't. But I'll try to make it exciting here. There's a woman named Heather McDonald who is she? Well, let's look it up, shall we? Why should anybody listen to Heather McDonald? I don't know. She's an American commentator, conservative. Oh no, political commentator, an essayist, attorney, and author. So she's basically a nobody, right? Just like I'm a nobody. But us nobodies can have fun talking, discussing ideas. This is what makes America great. I think I'm going to start with this one. She's white, and she's talking to a black guy named The Glenn Show. I'm sure his name is Glenn. But, I don't see color, but other people do, so that's why I mentioned she's white and he's black. I'm colorblind. I only see bald or not bald. And so it's really a bald guy interviewing a full of hair woman. Hey, welcome, Nathan.
Indicting the social organization of these communities, the parents, the families, the values.
Is it too loud?
The norms, you say, a breakdown in civilization. Whose fault is that?
Whose fault? Boy.
Is that the wrong question?
Well, it's a difficult question.
Yeah, whose fault is it? This is why I said sometimes it's okay to blame the victim. So let's give some very extreme examples. I would say, let's say the breakdown of the family unit, whatever that means, is the fault of the family. What's a clear-cut example? Where even a guy like Nathan in live stream chat would say, yeah, Doug, I agree with you. I want Nathan's love and agreement. So here's an example. It's thunderstorming outside, and the person knows that thunder can kill you. Lightning can kill you, not the thunder, that's just a sound. And that during thunderstorms, it does lightning, and that if you hold up a metal rod, you're more likely to get hit. So imagine a situation, someone knows this, goes out into a thunderstorm, and I don't know, wants to show off or whatever, sticks a metal rod up into the sky and gets hit by lightning. But survives, miraculously. But is now a victim of a horrendous lightning strike. Whose fault is that? He's a victim. I blame the victim. And I think you do too. Now, there's a clear, extreme example where I think even the tree huggers, the bleeding hearts, will agree with the heart dead conservative like me that there's a clear-cut example where you blame the victim. That victim was stupid. That's not a victim. He's hurt. Let's say he has third-degree burns. I mean, surely he's a victim. Don't you want to care for that? Give him hospital care and help him with his burns? He's a victim. Here's another one. Clear-cut example. Someone knows the laws of the land and decides, I'm going to take the chance and rob a bank. And they get caught and they spend the rest of their life in a steel box, suffering. I mean, he's a victim. He's suffering in a box for the rest of his life. Steel box. Maybe gets to walk outside 1 hour a day. Who do you blame? I blame the victim. I think you want an example where it's a person doing something wrong to someone. Okay, that's very good, Digital Gnosis. That's why I like you. You're here to help. Okay, and let me try my best. If you just came in here, we're finding examples where it's okay to blame the victim. Let's say there's a dark, dank back alley where every day it's mentioned in the newspapers that a woman has been raped there in this certain dark, dank alley. It's known as one of the worst dark, dank back alleys in all of civilization. Everybody knows this. But this woman with, good-looking woman says, I'm not scared, and goes in that dark, dank back alley and gets raped. She's a victim. But do you blame her? Everybody knows about this dark alley, and she took all that knowledge and said, I spit in the face of historical probabilities. I'm going to show you who's boss. And she gets raped. Doug, say dark and dank one more time. I dare you. Now, sure, you can blame the raper. Yeah, blame the raper. But also blame the rapee, right? No? You don't want to do that. That feels terrible. 50% her fault? Okay, here's another one. I think this is even in philosophical textbooks. Maybe not. I don't know. I don't read philosophical textbooks. Nathan can correct me if I'm wrong. But imagine let's make this controversial. Imagine a Muslim man tells his Muslim wife that if she goes out alone to go shopping without him or a male accompanier, that she will be beaten with a rod. And this husband comes from a family where that's done frequently. Her sister-in-laws have been beaten by her brother-in-laws. She knows this is not a joke, that it will happen. If she goes out shopping by herself and she comes home, she's going to be beaten with a rod. She knows this. And she does it anyhow. Chaperone. Thank you, Amelia Portman. Chaperone. She's a victim. She's been beaten by her husband. But she knew the rules, right? And she did it anyhow. Now, yes, you blame the husband, but don't you blame the wife as well? if she wouldn't have gone out alone, she would not have been beaten. Now, that's probably the most controversial example I've given so far. But if you assign zero blame to that victim, why? Especially if she knew going in the consequences. It's basically the same as there's an electrode there, and if you lick your finger and touch it, you're going to be zapped. Okay, and you're zapped. Bad electrode. Well, you touched it. So, who's to blame in this question from the bald guy to the haired woman? I put more blame on the people who are creating these families, choosing who to have sex with, choosing who to stay with. Let's see how she answers.
I think the first step is simply to acknowledge that there's a problem, and then start thinking about what sort of values need to be revalorized, to use a disgusting academic term, to change that. Again, historical causes, I don't know it, but at some point, I mean, it would be good if we could get the left to even acknowledge family breakdown. If it then wants to blame slavery exclusively for it, that would be a step in the right direction, at least. At some point, though, I would say, again, Pache, my earlier remarks, looking to historical causes may be in some sense accurate, but at some point it's up to a culture to take account and responsibility for itself. But I remember, Deborah Dickinson has pointed out years ago when I was mentioning family breakdown, just the very complicated relations between males and females in the Black community. And I think that's right. And it's a very tough thing to try and figure out how to fix. I remember doing a ride along in Chicago with this gorgeous Black cop.
Sounds like she was attracted to him.
He had a stable job, was going to have a great pension, but he had kids by several different mothers and was married to none of them.
Okay, now is that bad? I mean, he's a good-looking Black man. He's a cop, has a steady career. What's so bad about knocking up a whole bunch of women and being married to none of them? Anybody from on the left side of the aisle want to answer that? Nothing, you say? Well, maybe statistics and history show otherwise, that maybe that isn't good. But let me cause some more controversy here, because we're just having fun, right? I would say women, unless they're raped, are the gatekeepers for reproduction. Unless they're raped, they're the gatekeepers. So I blame that good-looking cop who's Black for knocking up all these women, getting them pregnant, and then marrying none of them. I do blame him. But do I dare say I blame those women more? Like, what women? What are you doing? He's spreading his seed all over the place. He has a finite amount of resources to help you. So when he knocks you up, I shouldn't say knock you up. That sounds so... When he gets you romantically pregnant, and then he does it to like 3 other women. I mean, part of his salary might go to help them. That means less for you. Don't do it. Just say, hey, gorgeous man, don't put that thingy into my thingy, and we can still have fun, right? But of course, I mean, it's all the government's fault. The government is like forcing people to have their thingies put in other people's thingies.
And that's not, I don't think that is an abusive relationship, but there's real complexity there that I have no ability, knowledge to comment on. But
yeah, like if a big rock hit our planet and there was only 3,000 people left on the planet, then I would say to this gorgeous Black cop, you have my blessing. Spill your seed wherever it may fit. I mean, if your goal is to reproduce humanity, maybe for the benefit of the planet, it's best that our species goes extinct. But if you want our species to continue on, yeah. But we don't have that situation in the world today.
But fixing what has become now the pattern of, which you know as well as I do, of multi-partner fertility, where any given female may have children by several different males, and any given male may have children by several different females.
Yes, B. Guzman, just stay home and spank it. And that's what's happening. You're noticing the reproduction rates in the civilized world, especially going down. In the non-civilized world, where you can't have the internet and spank as easily, it's still going up. But yeah, it's improving on its own. And for all you people out there who are concerned with the environment, you need to look a porn star in the eyes and thank them. Seriously. They're helping lower carbon footprints all over the world. They're probably lowering violence to women all over the world. One could write letters to porn stars with gratitude and thankfulness for helping gorgeous black cops prevent spilling their seeds all over the place. I mean, into women. By the way, if you're under 18, you should leave. Or you should tell your mother and father what you're doing right now, because this is for mature audiences only. We're talking candidly and really.
That's just a recipe for very, very tragic childhoods.
Yeah,
And
the economist Robert Cherry has actually been writing a little bit about this, and I've multiple partner paternity, and we don't want to traffic in stereotypes here. We'll be accused of doing that. Of course, it's a complex situation, and this is not a typical arrangement for Black child rearing, although the relative frequencies are much higher, and that does matter.
well, out of wedlock birth rate certainly
Yes, that has become the
typical.
norm. We're talking 70%.
71, yeah.
71, I stand corrected by the lady who's close to the data. And then
71% Black non-married birth rates, kids born in non-married homes, 71%.
people, what they're going
What is it for white people? Anybody know?
to say. They're going to say they're alternative arrangements, and the sociologists are not going to line up uniformly behind the causal argument that the family structure actually is related to the outcomes. They're going to have their own arguments, because they're hopelessly corrupted. They are, I'm sorry, by the ideology of avoiding victim blame as they understand it.
Yeah, right. Avoiding victim blame, because that just feels icky. I mean, we got to give victims hugs and kisses and compassion.
At all costs. This is Moynihan. This is an old story. I agree with you once again, Heather, that I think the family is the key. And I think gender relations, or inner male-female, however you want to call it, dynamic within African-American culture are to some degree troubled.
See, this guy's smart. He uses phrases like African American culture. She's, I think, so far hasn't said it that way. She just says black. There is a difference.
Abortion rate amongst Black women is
Oh,
extraordinarily
now he says
high.
black.
For instance, another indicator of out of wedlock births and single parenthood and all of that. I've almost given up trying to have this argument with people, because it's a kind of implacable wall of hostility.
Yep.
They'll say that you're saying that Black people are inferior. I'm sure that I'm going to be attacked and vilified, for
Yep.
the cowardly and self-hating agreement with you about this, because they're going to say you're saying there's something wrong with Black people. That's exactly what Ibram Kendi says. That's
No, there's something wrong with some people within a certain African American culture. And what I just said, most people in life cannot say. They could never say that because they view that as blaming the victim.
Exactly what Ta-Nehisi Coates says. There's something. Why are you saying there's something wrong with black people? And this idea that we can fix it. How can we fix it when 300 years of white supremacy, et cetera, et cetera? To which I have an answer, which is nobody is coming to save you. Point one,
Right.
you have no alternative but to address yourself to this matter. Do you want to live in dignity, or do you want to be a permanent ward of the beneficence of white liberals who, by the way, give them enough time and they'll change their mind about the whole thing?
Whoa, that is an amazing answer. I've never, well, that's an amazing answer. Did you hear what he said? He said, okay, blame. He basically is talking like me. Okay, blame white supremacy, blame systemic racism, all you want. Here's the facts, though. Nothing's going to change. Assume nothing's going to change. Now you do something about it. Assume the whole world's against you. Now you change. Accept the things you can't control, and you adapt. That's basically what he's saying.
I mean, that's my argument. I'm acknowledging the catastrophe of the normalization of single parenthood in African America, as if 48 hours a day of adult supervision time were not twice as many as 24 hours a day of adult, as if adolescent boys and girls were not fundamentally different in their emotional developmental arc, and that the bipolarity of male and female child rearing. No, I'm not ruling out same-sex marriages here, but I'm talking about the norm. I'm talking about the fat part of the distribution.
Yeah, homosexuals are abnormal. He's talking about the norm.
We're not fundamental to getting the socialization of the male and the female children on track, as if the disciplinary supervision of a father, we're not fundamental in keeping a kid from choosing a gang as his polar point of contact for expressing his masculinity. Discipline, as if that didn't matter. And the ability to...
It does matter. And I'm on record of saying this, and I can't prove it, prove in quotes. But I would say that a biological male, a man, is more important to child rearing than a woman, especially after the age of 5, 6, 7, when they start getting bigger. I'll stand by that. And I'll wait for the science to prove me right if it's not already out there. In other words, and I think it is already out there, but again, these are things that make some people uncomfortable. But I think if here maybe I can get people on the left to agree with me by putting it this way, because my goal here is to get self-adulation, right? Let's say a certain percentage of the population the kids are from single parent homes. Would you rather them all be single mother homes or single father homes? Now, there's pros and cons to both. Don't get me wrong. You risk, those fathers who have anger issues and beat their kids. But on the plus side, fathers tend to make more money than mothers. Remember the pay gap thing? Yeah, you remember that. And they're more disciplinarian. In other words, imagine a 13-year-old big boy, and the mother says, no, don't go out tonight. Stay home, do your homework. Imagine a mother doing that versus a father doing that. Who's going to be more likely to succeed? In fact, I found this, where is it? Yeah, let me bring this up. I'm talking about pragmatics here. Let's see here.
When you grow up in the hood, we can all be gangster.
Right, yeah,
I watch niggas do nigga shit my whole life. When you grow up in the bricks, you know what it is. I know niggas in Rikers serving life that I grew up with, that I used to play in the playgrounds with.
Right.
I just chose not to go to that park with them. I went somewhere else. I chose to do other things. My mother was like, street lights come on, bring your black ass upstairs. My dad was like, I was more afraid of my dad's bell than anything. So that kept me out of trouble. When you young black men without fathers get into a lot more trouble. A mother is different than a father. A father will strike fear in your ass. A mother, you could argue with. At a point, a boy, 13, 14 years old, Ma, I could take you. Nah, I got hair on my dick. Now, you can't take me. Those slaps don't work. Those belts don't hurt. When you grow up in the hood, we can...
Yeah. This is why Christianity works. This is why Islam works, because there's fear. Fear does change human behavior. And so you can disagree with, corporate punishment or using fear tactics. You can disagree with that. But you can't disagree, I don't think, with the idea that it works. Like, you got a bunch, let's say you got two young kids, two young boys in a park, and you got two MMA fighters, and they want to cause trouble, I don't know, bully other kids or destroy property, whatever. They're not going to do it if they see these two big guys there. They're not. Why? Because they value their own life and they don't want to be in pain.
Sustain it within a household as if two wages weren't better than one, etc. I mean, I've tired, I've grown weary of arguing with these people as this slow-moving train wreck, which went ahead and called attention to more than a half century ago, weren't unfolding before my very eyes.
And let me just say, of course, that the white underclass has massive problems as well.
Yeah, I was just thinking that. Like, this does not apply to a certain skin tone. Like, this applies to all fatherless homes. You are more likely to have children from fatherless homes who have a propensity for crime, to do worse in school.
And you've got, this is what something Charles Murray warned about, the rising illegitimacy rate there too. And the usual pathologies will follow in its wake. So it's not as if American culture overall is doing really great when it comes to marriage at this point, although the white overall marriage out of wedlock birth rate is.
Someone, Uberscheiser says, hey, I remember the last time mom whipped me with a belt for punishment. My mom never spanked me. Well, maybe a couple times, but I don't really remember. Same with my dad. He only spanked me a couple times. Corporate punishment was very rarely used. But I do remember this, and I probably shouldn't say this, but I'll say it anyhow. There was one time, I think I was 14, 15 years old, and my mom really lost her temper with me. I mean, really lost it, more than I've ever seen her lose her temper with me before. And she went up to slap me on the face. I saw it coming, and I just grabbed her hand and slowly put her hand down by her side. 14, 15 years old. I might have even been 13. You can't do that with a father. Or you could try, but you probably would fail. And my dad was way bigger than me when I was 13, 14. And that's the point that other gentleman made in that short I showed. Hey, thanks for the donation, Mason Dry. I obeyed every command my mom ever gave me growing up because I was scared of what my dad would do to me if I didn't. Yes, Mason Dry. Yeah. I don't know. I've heard a couple of times my mom say, wait till your dad gets home. How many kids grew up hearing that? Wait till your dad gets home. What if dad never comes home? You can't say that. This is why I think fathers in the home are more important than mothers. Mothers are still important, don't get me wrong. But I think most of the time how a person will end up, how the degree of the likelihood of them being contributing members of society is more likely to be because of the father. Don't lie. We know you came back with a massive overhand right to your mom. No, no. The thing is, I got a 17-year-old son, just turned 17. And I outweigh him by 50 pounds. I can still do more push-ups than him. I mean, if I have a great son. He's just a great boy. Never gets in trouble at school, honor roll, all that thing. But if he was a terrible son, I mean, just rebellious, disrespectful, and everything, if he wanted to be physical against his sister, my daughter, or my wife, and I'm around, he would not have a chance. I could just, and he's not a fighter, I'm not a fighter, but I could just give him a bear hug and he wouldn't be able to move. I could easily subdue him. When you're 50 pounds heavier than someone who doesn't have any fighting skills, it's pretty easy. So, yeah.
Is now about 27%. So it's still, nearly 2/3 less than blacks.
Corporal, yeah, sorry, did I say corporate?
But it's rising, and that's a problem. And the demonization of males is something that goes across the culture. I'm not.
Yes, that's another problem. The demonization of males, of more specifically masculinity. That it's not okay to. I know not everybody thinks this, but there's some people out there who just thinks that all masculinity is bad. No, masculinity is what protects women from other men. You want real men, masculine men on that wall protecting you. You want real masculine men to be firefighters, policemen, military personnel. And this is a bit of off topic, but when you actually lower the standards for fire, police, and military to allow more women in, you're not doing society a service. You're not.
Sure that's so relevant in Black culture, though, the kind of feminist hatred of masculinity and the traditional male virtues. Yeah, and the other thing about the family breakdown is, we tend to sort of always talk about the individual child who needs the parents, but the other thing is just growing up in a marriage a culture that still has some remnant of marriage expectations left. And Kay Heimowitz, my colleague at City Journal, has written about this, that, bourgeois kids, white kids grow up with a marriage script that says for males, if you want to be a viable mate for a female, you do have to develop certain bourgeois habits of self-control and deferred gratification. But if it becomes the norm that...
What is this she speaks of? Deferred gratification? Does anybody know what she's talking about? Self-control? What is this? What are these words coming out of this white woman's mouth? Self-control, delayed gratification?
Any male can have access to as many...
I need to put my washing away like a man, but maybe after. Oh, yes, you broke up with your girlfriend, now you have to do your own wash.
Females as he wants without having to marry them, then that creates no incentive for staying in school and doing some studying and learning how to deal with authority. So it's a problem as well on a larger basis, that boys, even if they don't have, or that they don't have a norm of marriage. And I think Raj Chetty's
yeah, she's stuttering a little bit too much for me right now. She actually has a nice presentation over here, but it's long. Yeah, I want to talk about something else. You get the gist of what she's saying. Oh, yeah, I want to talk about busing immigrants. I'm in a border state with Mexico. I'm in Arizona. It's a real issue for especially ranchers in southern Arizona, Texas, New Mexico. And I think the busing of immigrants to sanctuary cities is a beautiful idea. It's great because so often people in other states don't get to experience firsthand the tremendous burden it is to bring in immigrants from countries like South America, Mexico. Most of them choosing the amnesty route rather than, let's say, visa route, required labor route, that sort of thing. And a lot of people just hate me saying it this way, but let me be very clear. Immigrants who are coming in for amnesty reasons, mostly from South America, Mexico, Central America, are a burden to society, at least in the short run. And when I say short run, could be years. You can make an argument that's good for the society 10 years from now, maybe even a generation from now. But in the short run, I think you'd find very few people who would admit that it's not work. It is work. Oftentimes, these people don't have a place to stay, nowhere to go, very little money. Some have health problems, some have children who need education. So when you bus them from border states into more central United States, politicians and just everyday humans, everyday citizens get to see firsthand with their own eyes the amount of work it takes. I had a friend who used to babysit for us who was a Christian, hardcore, born-again Christian, who worked in this area for a living. At least maybe not now. But she would post stories and just like ask, does anybody have a old bike they want to get rid of? We have this immigrant who needs transportation. Like from the very, like everything, clothes, it's basically like having babies, toddlers that you need to take care of because they have nothing. And what's interesting about this is that there's so many homeless people in the United States already. When you add to it, the homeless people, a lot of minorities, start to see what's going on, and they get a little upset. What, you're helping them and not me? At least I'm a U.S. citizen.
To accommodate growing crisis here at home will slow down their response to the crisis at the southern border.
Yeah, these communities have temporarily shut their doors.
This is a local TV show in Buffalo, New York.
To asylum seekers.
Yeah, and they're not Canadians coming over.
They work to manage their homeless populations. Now, state of emergency orders are now in effect in 5 counties. They vary in length from 5 to 30 days. But lawmakers in these communities say they are likely to be extended. These orders ban hotels and motels from housing migrants who are bussed in from other parts of the state.
Now, county leaders are telling me that this decision will give them time to assess what, if any, resources or space.
Yeah, as far as my understanding goes, some of the immigrants that were bussed in some places were put up in like hotel rooms and at the taxpayer's expense.
Is available. They say their attention is focused on their homeless populations, but this move is feeding into a larger conversation about our region's response to the southern border amidst the end of Title 42. This pandemic-era immigration program allowed border agents to turn migrants away before they could apply for asylum or other protections. Former President Donald Trump put the policy in place to help stop the spread of COVID-19 when the COVID public health emergency.
Yeah. Any other time, if Trump did Title 42, it would be considered racist. But because of COVID, okay, we'll give you a pass.
Emergency ended earlier this month, though. Title 42 ended as well. The U.S. now anticipating thousands of people to apply for asylum. Many are freed into the U.S.
By the way, look at all that. Look at Trump's wall there. You see it in the background?
while their case moves through the system. Title 42 did not apply to certain visa holders crossing from Mexico, among them migrants with H-2A visas. This is a federal program that allows U.S. employers to hire migrants to fill temporary farming jobs. And tonight, the Genesee County manager tells me why this is the best decision for his community.
One of the major reasons for the executive order is because they could show up, asylum seekers could show up at our door without our knowledge.
Genesee County Manager Matt Lander says he issued a state of emergency and executive order because they're concerned the state could bus dozens of migrants to his county, potentially adding to an already existing homeless problem.
This makes it so that it will be a civil offense if a hotelier does contract with an outside entity, such as New York City, without first getting basically a permit or a permission from the county manager. What this executive order, look
at coming up. This is good TV, right? A young woman of color with a crutch. See, now people who are bleeding heart liberals, they go, "Oh, we gotta show compassion," and then you stinking conservatives, right wingers out there saying, "I gotta pay for that cast coming up," you know.
What it basically does is make sure that we don't get a busload of 80 individuals that we don't know where they're from, we don't know their background, and they're going to be now in our community, embedded with us, in a situation where we can't house our own homeless.
Yeah, we don't know who they are, where they're from. You think this little girl's going to rob your banks in your community, sir?
It just isn't fair to our community. It's not fair. It's inhumane to the people that would potentially come into our community.
He says they already have to ship homeless people to shelters in Monroe and Erie counties, and they're not in a position to accommodate more.
It's not that we're not welcoming or that we're not understanding of the situation at hand, but if we currently can't handle the situation in our own backyard, then why would we welcome more in?
He says,
well, that just makes too much sense. If we can't handle the situation in our own backyard, why would we welcome more situations, more burdens, more financial burdens to our society? That just makes sense. That's just science. You know, for the people who lean left and who are against this busing thing, I would just make this argument. Red states are racist anyhow. I mean, do you really want these poor immigrants who are just seeking out a better life to stay in a red state? Like Texas or Florida or Arizona? Arizona's kind of purple. New Mexico's kind of purple too, but more blue, I guess. But still, let's be real. Let's get them out of the red states and to the blue states where they can be properly loved. Right? I mean, who do you want taking care of someone from Belize or Peru? A right-wing Republican? Or a left-wing Democrat? Who can feel their pains better? Who can show more compassion? It's a no-brainer. So every blue state should say to the southern borders states, please bring us your financial burdens. We will take care of them. And if you don't view them as financial burdens, but it's great for your economy, then, oh yeah, please, you send us a bus full of 100? No. Send us a bus full of 1,000. Because if 100 immigrants is going to be great for our economy, then 1,000 is going to be 10 times great for our economy. But why do I have a feeling they're not going to talk like this? Yeah. Oh, I forgot to tell you about global temperature. Global temperature hasn't changed in the last 6 years, but there has been a change in sea levels. This is huge news. Sea levels went up, everyone. The last time I did this, it was November. They only had data going to November. Now we have data going to February of this year, and it went up. Sea levels have risen. Last data was November 22nd. Yeah, went 95.8 above 1993 levels, 96, 97, 98, 98.7, then 98.7, and then down a little bit. But in my head, I'm still thinking that it should be at 104. Because remember, they said it was 104, and then they changed it. They shifted everything down. Yeah, I even got the proof. And I still don't know why they did it. As far as I could tell, they shifted the whole curve down. So in my head, the sea levels are still at 104, not at 98. But if they didn't shift it down, and if it doesn't go above 104 by November of this year, that means sea levels have not been rising for more than a year. Huh. El Nino, that's the reason why they shifted it down? Okay, I'm going to open up the room, whether you like it or not, to callers. Please, someone who disagrees with me, call in. What? Where's that? Oh, there it is. If you haven't seen it on my religious channel, I posted today a great conversation on abortion with a Christian. And on in vitro fertilization. Do some poll to establish a baseline. Okay. I tend to lean overall right or left. You can't say center. I know you love you limp-wristed, hate to take a stand type people. Don't like to be forced into one way or another, but I'm forcing you here. Oh, wow. Only 2 votes. Come on. On my religious channel, it would definitely be something like 60, 65% leaning left. But I'm curious what it's going to be here. Oh, so far it's... You know what? Thank you. I mean, I want the results. I don't want to bias the results, but I want the results to be more left-leaning. So if you lean right and you agree with mostly everything I say, don't call in. That's no fun. That's like atheists calling into my other show. That's no fun. You can, I guess, especially if no left-leaning people have the courage. Just like Christians don't have courage, or Muslims, a lot of them, some do, but a lot of them don't have courage to call in my other show. People who tend to lean left don't have courage to call into this one. Once we hit 30 votes, I'm going to change the poll to something else. I'll do, oh yeah, this will be fun. I'm very curious to know what you guys think. Come on, we need 2 more votes. Representatives sample. Oh, a liberal guy wants in. Should we let him in? Should we? Yeah. Let's let the tree hugger in. Hello.
Hey, I heard you said people who lean left won't call in.
Yeah, and that worked, didn't it? It got you in here. I
Well,
I
I saw how
manipulated
you
you.
treated Baked Alaska. I was like, whew.
Well, I don't understand. See, hang on a second. I got to adjust.
Okay, well that's another
No,
channel.
no.
That's not this channel.
I know, but I want to talk about that. But
Sure.
I got to adjust something here first. Hang on. Because whenever I start my whereby, my volume on my mic immediately goes down, so I have to constantly fight with it. Okay, so with Baked Alaska, this is on topic because I think people who view what I did with him, if they view me as being harsh or cruel, they'll tend to answer left on this poll I have up. And people who will say, hey man, he's a grown adult. If he can't take this, what's wrong with him? Or, it's totally fair for Doug if he doesn't want to talk to him because it's just being repetitive. My guess is they're going to vote right on this poll. It boils down to levels of compassion or perceived compassion or feel sorry for-ism is what I call it. Would you agree with that?
I do kind of agree with that. Do you want my take on it?
Sure.
Okay, I wonder if you agree with this. I think you want two things. I think you want one, interesting conversations.
Yeah.
You don't want to be bored.
Right.
And two, you want people who are honest. And you felt like both of those were kind of lacking there. Like you felt like there was some wishy-washiness. That's what I got from you on that. Like he just kind of pulled whatever way the wind was blowing. You're like, I don't want to do this anymore.
You're exactly right. And people could get inside my brain when that happened. First of all, I've watched it back like several times, and I don't even perceive myself as being overly harsh. I was just brutally honest with him. That's all.
Yeah.
It's not like I raised my voice on him or anything. But if you could get inside my brain, you would have saw me thinking, we've had this conversation over and over and over again. And you would have saw me saying to myself, this guy's not being honest with me. When I said witnessing a resurrection, don't you think that would create more Christians? And he says no, or I don't know, or we can't say for sure. Given the background knowledge of his own religious system where people came to faith because of Jesus's miracles, I mean, it's just, yeah, you're right. I viewed this as being dishonest and boring, repetitive, and I had enough.
Yeah. Well, I guess, do you have a question I got only a little bit of time, Dave, but do you have a question to throw at me that can give you something interesting?
Do you think it's a good thing or bad thing that southern border red states are busing immigrants to sanctuary cities?
I think a lot of those cities are hypocrites, especially when I saw it was DeSantis who bused them to Martha's Vineyard. I don't think it's a good thing. And then all the rich people up there were like, how are we supposed to deal with this? And it's like, where's your compassion? We're going to fix this problem. We're going to help people. It's quite clear that people don't want to deal with problems. I think both Republicans and Democrats have that. I don't like either group on this. Do you want my solution for immigration?
Sure.
Go after the companies. Just make it so that if companies are found to be hiring people who don't have the right documentation to be working, that they get majorly fined. There's a lot of abuse of immigrants who are working currently.
No, see, but that, how will that stop people coming in for amnesty reasons?
I'm not so concerned with that. I'm okay with that.
Why are you okay with that?
Feelings. I'm too nice.
Okay. I agree with you. Like I think you and I agree with each other that we should help people. Like if someone is in a war situation or their life is going to end, if they're a homosexual in a Muslim country and they're going to die unless they get out, I'm with you on that. But here's the question: if you and I were on the Titanic and it's going down, and so you and I hop into a lifeboat. You hop in yours, I hop in mine. We were like one guy and most of the women and children, but we see women and children in the water, and the capacity of the boat is 40, and we have 42, 43 on already. We're ready to go over the limit, and people are crying to come on. Are you the type of guy who said, I'm willing to risk sinking the whole boat to bring one more life on?
That's such a hard question.
But this is
Like,
the
let me
question with amnesty, because the United States
Mhm.
could literally bring in millions and millions and millions of people based on amnesty around the world.
So I think you actually maybe are going in my direction. I think you give good answers. Like you go for the highest priority first, which is what you said with countries where people might be harmed for certain reasons. Like if you're LGBT and you get killed, would you agree maybe that we should offer, like if there's a little tiny baby that's like 1 week old, they had it on the Titanic, we should pick that up and put it in our lifeboat. Pick it up.
Yeah, but let's say, but even then, like, I think I am more likely to say let that baby die than you are, because
Yeah, I think you are.
yeah, because like the baby might only weigh 10 pounds, but let's say that 10 pounds sinks the boat and now you lose 43 people. Like I know this is a very extreme example, but it makes the point very clearly that in society that immigrants are from poor countries are a burden. They are a burden financially, and with resources, kids, schools being overrun, in healthcare. The first step for liberals like you, in my opinion, is to admit that, number one, that they are a burden in the short run. Can you do that?
I can admit that there is economic burden, certain
Yeah.
burdens to it.
Okay,
Certain
good.
burden- Go ahead.
That thank you for admitting that, because that's step one. And so once you realize that they are an economic burden or resource burden in the short run, and that short run could still last years, that and you only have a finite amount of resources. That's another thing I think a lot of liberals struggle with. Oh, we don't have a finite. I mean, we are unlimited amount of resources. Look at all the money we waste here or waste there. That's what they'll say, right? But technically, we can't afford anything in this country anymore. Our deficit's on pace for 1 trillion this year, and things are fairly good. So, yeah, I do think you just can't let everybody in.
Well, I think you make, well, one, so my response, I'm going to tell you my response, and then I want to tell you why I agree with you. My response is I'm willing, and I'm stating this, to take on more burden. Like I'm willing to have higher taxes so we can help out. But my liberals that I'm a part of are hypocrites, because when they're suddenly presented with this, when it happens, when Ron DeSantis sends the immigrants to Martha's Vineyard, they start complaining. They don't want the burden. They don't want to have to help out.
Right.
So you're right that people don't acknowledge there is cost to this. And when they have to pay the cost, they don't want to do it. They're fine to criticize Ron DeSantis.
But I think
and
you're a hypocrite too, and here's why.
Oh, why am I?
Okay, I don't know your
Go ahead.
situation, but are you a married man, family?
I fancy, yeah.
Okay,
Go ahead.
let's say we had sort of like you know how with visas, I first was here on a sponsorship type visa. Let's say we did that with amnesty. Immigrants on amnesty have to be sponsored by U.S. citizens, and the individual U.S. citizens are now responsible for that immigrant. Would you?
We could get a lot.
Would you?
We could get a lot of churches to do this.
Would you personally sign up? I wouldn't. Would you?
That's a tough question.
Would you take a guy or a family from Belize in to your home? And when they go out in the store to stores or whatever, if they shoplift, that's your responsibility. You sponsored them. They're your responsibility. They basically become your children.
Does it have to be in the house?
Well, if not the house, you have to pay for a rental apartment for them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean,
because it's easy to say let the government pay for it, but what if you had to pay for it?
Right now, I'm not 100% for this system, but it depends on how much in need people are. Like if we had something like World War II going on, where we had Jewish people coming to America, I could see paying for housing and giving them amnesty from Germany. It just depends on the situation.
Don't use we. Don't use the pronoun we. Use the pronoun
me.
Me. So you would do it.
Yeah. In that situation, I would.
But not the situation that we have today?
My empathy needs to maybe be a little bit better.
There you go.
Well, I guess you want to throw one more at me, and I might jump out here. I'm the only liberal brave enough to talk to you, apparently.
I know you're well, and Nathan's going to be coming on soon.
We gave him a ribbon for talking to you.
He doesn't have a woman to do his laundry for him, so as soon as he's done that, he'll come on.
Nathan, if you got to check out his fighting videos lately. He's
oh yeah, oh man,
he's our number one liberal.
You know, he works for the Wichita Home Office as my bodyguard, right?
Yeah. See,
yeah,
we're all buddy.
Well, he was hired for a reason.
Well, I mean, what's Myron doing these days?
Oh, he's a goofball. But the last question for you would be, maybe the last two questions.
Sure.
Do you think if you had to take all the single parent homes in the United States, and let's say magically they're all single mother homes or single father homes, which one would you choose? And why?
Gosh. Okay, well, I was hoping magically you would say make them 2-parent households, and I would totally agree.
Oh, that would be the dream.
The
but let's be realists here, right?
Yeah. And I'll just say this. I wouldn't care if it was whatever the genders of the two people are. So magically they're all single mothers, magically they're all single fathers.
Yeah, you can only choose one. Which would you choose? There's downsides to both and upsides to both, right? But overall, which would you choose?
If this was the 1950s, I might go more single mothers because the breadwinners in the family would be men. So you would see men still supporting wives. That's why I'm more split. You look confused.
Well, I thought you were going to say something else. That if it was the 1950s, you would choose single mothers because kids were better behaved back then. But you didn't go there.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm thinking about economic support and family support. I really have a hard time picking, so I will pick one just to pick one. I'm gonna go with mothers.
Oh, you
feelings, emotions. I mean, I do think I think there's a lot of
Okay. I shouldn't disparage you for giving your honest answer. So thank you.
I have a hard time with that one.
Thank you for your answer, but let me now put in another piece into this hypothetical. Let's say it's true that we know statistically, historically, that single-parent homes, children from single-parent homes, do less crime from single-father homes versus single-mother homes. Less poverty and less crime.
Right.
Would you change your answer?
Yeah, probably. That'd be a good way to change my answer.
Okay, and I'm not 100% sure that this is correct, but I think what I just said is the case.
And then probably it's the case that children from 2-family or 2-parent households do even less or less likely.
Right. Yes.
Yeah, I want to set people up for success. I mean, we can't control this, but it'd be good if I think we should just support relationships, support families.
Yes.
So that's why you support giving welfare to families to help them stay together?
I'm not against that, no.
Oh, hey, that's awesome. I was trying to throw a
But
curveball at you.
But I do think there's better ways to do it, more efficient ways to do it, and that there are unintended consequences. But yeah, I think the government does have a responsibility, but I do think it's better that family, local communities, neighbors, friends help out first.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's why churches do some good.
Yeah.
You can't. Yeah.
I agree. Churches, I mean, the United States would be a mess if it wasn't for the good parts of churches in the United States, like the Deacons Fund and that sort of thing. But anyhow, I know you said you have to go and someone else just
I had one last thing.
Oh, yeah.
I hate to bug you with this. I'm really actually kind of mad about it. I went to the Wichita Home Office with my Pine Points, and they were actually mad at me. They told me they're not valid anymore, and
They're not.
threw me out of the home office.
Yeah, you deserve to be thrown out.
Oh, well, okay. I'm going to leave. I'll get thrown out of here. Thanks for the talk.
Yeah, that's just the consequences of, the changing currencies in today's world.
Thanks. Have a good day, Pinecreek.
See ya. Oh, it's you.
It's me.
Okay.
It's been really hard kind of listening in with all of the lies and right-wing propaganda and just being dead inside and holding on to my feelings. So I had to call in to...
Well, it takes a brave soul for you to call into this show. So
Yeah, God gives his bravest soldiers his toughest battles, right? So
Did you get your laundry folded and washed?
So laundry's here in the background. I've got a competition tomorrow and I'm driving a friend there as well. So I've just been like packing my bags, and then I'm going to my grand's funeral after that. So
What competition?
I'm, like, driving from there. British Open
Oh,
Jiu-Jitsu competition.
so this is a big deal. Like, do you win money if you win?
No money, just
Prestige.
pride and honor, which lasts forever. Yeah.
Okay, so let's say there's you get married to a woman, and you have a child, and the child is just for whatever reason, genetically or whatever, unruly.
Okay.
13 years old, 140 pounds, strong kid, but unruly, like trouble at school, likes to punch little girls in the head. And now,
Very relatable.
I would want you as this unruly kid's father. Do you disagree?
I think it. No, I mean, like, I wouldn't necessarily say from like the perspective of because of anything physical, though. I think it would more be because that kid with a father who's like maybe not very intelligent or doesn't understand their own emotions very well might just react to that situation and fuck the kid up like way worse.
I know, but you wouldn't do that because you're a trained martial artist. So but the reason why I say what I said is you can restrain an unruly teenage boy in a way that wouldn't hurt them, but could stop them dead in their tracks, right?
Yeah, like yeah. Pretty much like.
So I would want for all those crazy young teenage boys out there who are really disobedient or whatever, I would want a guy like you as a father who can see the situation, predict it before it even happens, and stop it, and
like
do no harm to the
right
kid.
That those situations, you're right. Those situations exist, right? And you want people who can de-escalate the violence without like having to resort to something extreme or whatever. But I think like if you're talking long term, a kid like that, there's going to be some other approach that isn't just, like beyond.
Yeah. You want to set him down and have a talk with him, of course, and
but no, it might not even be like it might be about like giving them goals and values or something like that, right? That's going to set them on the right path rather than
lead them to Jesus, that sort of thing. Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, but I would even say that let's say a rough neighborhood school where I don't know, grade 10, grade 11, a math class or whatever, I would rather have you as the teacher, especially if my child's in that class, than a woman.
Maybe it just depends on the context, right?
Like if it's a school where there's a lot of trouble, you can diffuse any type of escalation between two boys or whatever way faster than a woman could.
Possibly, it depends. Like I think that verbal skills can play a role in like that de-escalation stuff. I definitely would agree that you probably want to have a few guys around who like could sort out those situations if they became physical, right? But I don't know if it's always going to be the best thing because there might be some women who have like better social or verbal skills.
Yeah, but I'm talking about situations where it's already to the point where words don't matter. Like tempers are flaring. You could probably take two teenage boys down harmlessly before they even realize what happened.
Yeah, like that.
Don't be modest. What I'm trying to do here.
It's quite funny, actually. I like it when I kind of like it when people who are clearly on gear and stuff turn up at the gym for the first time, like all jacked up, and like they have their first roll and they're so like tense and stuff, and you just kind of sweep them around and they're kind of like, what the hell's going on? That's quite fun.
My goal of all this conversation actually is for people to realize that like I view you as a very masculine man, and that you play a very important role in society.
Wow, thank you, Doug.
Yeah. And if I had my way, like I would want more of guys like you in schools as fathers or whatever. Now, I'm not saying you're ready to be a father yet, but
might not have a chance, when when the dog comes out.
Yeah.
The date went well yesterday, so I'll be seeing her again.
Oh, with
the doctor.
Did you take my advice?
I took your advice. I mean, we just like talked about stuff, and I think she actually said, without me prompting her, pretty much what you said about that she was in a position in her life where she sort of like didn't feel she needed a relationship or anything, but was just like seeing what options were out there if there was something that could kind of contribute to her life, and she seems to have quite good values and things like that.
Sounds like a keeper. Bring her on the show, and
Yeah.
I can vet her for you a little more.
Well, she obviously found my YouTube channel and looked at some of my videos and stuff, and she did say that she thought you were a nice guy, actually, because she watched the video where I talked to you.
About that when I deconverted you, that one?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Then she'll watch some other videos of me and say I'm a horrendous racist, homophobic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Anyhow, Danny, did you want to come on? I see Danny's in the live stream chat. Oh, let me ask you the same questions I asked that tree hugger.
Okay.
I know you don't live in the United States, but what do you think of the busing from the southern states to the sanctuary cities, the democratic states, cities?
I mean, I know about the stuff that are you talking about specifically the stuff DeSantis has done as kind of like a show, or is this a particular policy?
No, it's not just DeSantis. It's like Arizona's done it. I think even, well, Texas definitely, New Mexico, I'm not sure. California, no. But basically, many southern states put immigrants on buses in Chicago, Denver, New York.
I mean, it seems a bit kind of like shitty to me, basically, just on the face of it, because it's kind of like, you know, that those more democratic states have that social welfare and stuff in place because they want to help these sorts of people. But realistically, you kind of know that they don't have the resources to deal with all that. So you're kind of just deliberately trying to do something that'll like screw with what they're trying to achieve to make a point, and that there's something about
okay
underhanded.
I agree with you. They probably don't have the resources to deal with it, but then aren't you assuming that the southern states do?
Well, not necessarily. I don't know. Maybe they would be better if they would be better off, right, going to those states. Then maybe actually I would think it's a good thing. But I'm assuming that the southern states also don't have the ability to like deal with those people, right, in the current configuration, budgeting and stuff. And so what they're doing is then just sending all those people somewhere else where they're going to be as bad or worse off. But then they're also going to overload.
They're in Democrat states.
And make other people.
How can they be worse off if they go from a red state to a blue state and they're poor? I mean,
there's only so much budget and capacity in those programs,
yes.
Right? And so
well, tell me if you agree with this. I think it's a brilliant idea because I think this issue is an important one, and it forces politicians in blue states to rethink everything because they actually get to experience firsthand what southern states have been going through for decades.
Are you referring to that because they're like along the border and like people turn up and stuff like that? Yeah. Maybe
like you should go to Yuma, Arizona here. I mean, it's crazy. It's just like it's 4 hours from me, but Yuma is like literally right on the border. Like you can take a stone and throw it far and almost throw it into Mexico. And I tell you, that city is just overwhelmed.
I think there's a couple of things about it that like kind of unappealing to me, right? One of them is treating these people just as a means to an end and kind of objectifying them in that way, like they're just political pawns to be shifted around to make a point or whatever, right? That sort of, I disagree with that at some level. And then the second thing is there's almost this attitude of, well, if we can't have a nice thing, then no one else can, so let's like screw up their system as well. And I don't like that kind of like bitterness or whatever that seems to underlie it too. I mean, maybe there is a valid point though, right? Maybe that the model that some of those blue states use in terms of like having certain social safety nets or budgeting certain programs wouldn't work in those other states because of the number of people. But I think then that should be resolved in other ways than just like shuttling a bunch of people into those states.
Am I audible?
Yes.
I'm in the middle of Mississippi.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Well, it's a good thing you're not. Well, never mind. I was going to say it's a good thing you're not black, but actually Mississippi is mostly black, right?
Yeah, it's pretty black. Cities are.
If you can tap your camera off, Danny, it might make your audio better. If you can tap your camera off.
Yeah, this is not amateur hour, Danny.
Okay, any better?
Yeah, we'll see.
Is this any better?
Yeah, I think it might be. We'll see. Anyhow,
I can just come back and like.
no. Try saying what you wanted to say.
We're talking about single mothers.
Yep.
Oh, okay. No, I was just
MILFs,
saying. Well, as far as the black people, yeah, in Louisiana, Mississippi, I think the larger cities are majority black, right?
Yeah, I think so.
That's what I was saying earlier. And then y'all were talking about single mothers and fathers.
Yeah, I asked that question. I haven't asked that of Nathan yet, but let me ask you, both of you. So in the hypothetical, you can magically change all the single parent homes to either all single mother homes or all single father homes. Which would you choose?
Well, you think for me, like this question is very contextualized. So maybe in the United States, fathers, but like if I were in China, I don't think it would matter, right? Because there's like different types of troubles that children are tempted to do depending on what country or culture they're in, right?
Yeah, I meant it for just United States.
Yeah, I mean, I would be tempted to say fathers, but I think that shows more of an, rather than that being more of an indicator of like, what parent is like better, I think that's indicative of the kind of cultural issues that we have, such that certain children are tempted to join gangs or whatever. Like you don't have that issue in China, for instance.
How about you, Nathan?
What explains that?
What's your answer, Nathan, to the hypothetical?
It is a difficult one, but because I've kind of been forced, I think I'd go with fathers in the US. Yeah.
For the same reason as Danny?
It's difficult because I do think that there are. So like again, just like constraining everything to US conceptions of like masculinity and femininity and stuff, right? I think that more problems would be generally solved by like having good fathers around than good mothers in terms of the types of people that you want to produce in adulthood. But that's not to say that there aren't like very important things that mothers do as well, right? It's just the particular kind of place that the US.
You sound like ChatGPT. The other day I typed in. I typed in.
As an AI language.
Actually, you know what? Let me.
Obviously, cannot take a sense.
Well, I won't do it now. But I typed in, "Are men on average stronger than women?" I typed that into ChatGPT, and it said. Basically, it answered yes. Men in general are more physically stronger than women. However, that is no indication of human worth or value. And that's exactly what you did. And so then I tried to get it to just give me an answer.
ChatGPT smart, man.
Then I tried to have it give me the answer without any other. Just give me the answer.
Bloviation.
Yeah. And so I said, "Are men stronger than women on average?" And do not use the word however, but in your answer. And it found another word to use. And it felt the need. It's like, I know it's a computer program without needs, but it felt the need to reassure people. This is crazy.
Is it crazy? I mean, I think that there are good reasons to be wary of sort of like simplistic answers that categorize people on the basis of their gender, right? And those reasons are like historical.
But if it's factual, it's factual, right? Like if men are on average stronger than women, then why do you need to say anything other than that? To me, it is
because of the context. So that's it. It's 100% because of the context, right? So if you were in this situation where that you're just a robot and there's absolutely no context whatsoever, and the question is, are men on average stronger than women? Then the answer is like yes, right? I had to think about that for a second. But then think of the context of this. It's a political discussion, right? About so what we're talking about fundamentally are like values, the way we should construct society, the way we should treat people and stuff like that. And so the question is not being raised just in the sense of what's the answer, but it's being raised against the backdrop of like what are the roles of men and women in society,
Right. And
like
okay,
how should we think about kind
yeah,
of stuff like that.
I understand what you're saying, but to me, the fact that that backdrop even exists in the context of that question is ridiculous to me. Like the fact that, like if my daughter would need the reassurance after being asked the question, are men on average stronger than women physically? And she needs this type of support in that answer. I failed as a father. I mean, a woman should be able to say, of course men are stronger than women physically. Like, and you don't need to say anything else. I mean, I value myself already. I don't feel the need to be sad about that. Like,
so you might be right about like that question specifically. I think though there are cases, and like your daughter's probably a good example, right, where there are certain questions she could ask and there are answers you could give that might make her like be discouraged from choosing a particular career, or like feeling like something she likes is a good thing for her to like, so she might force herself to try and like something else because of cultural expectations or whatever. And you know, I think in that case it is sometimes going to be better to sort of caveat your answer, right? Say like, yeah, you're really into maths. Yes, like men tend to be into maths like more than you, but you can still like go and do a maths degree if you want and be a great mathematician. You know, like that sort of thing. Right?
Danny, you're basically a woman. So what do you do you feel upset when people say that men are stronger than women physically?
No, I don't. But do you feel upset if I were to say, like, remember, this is the context of what parent is better, all else, you know, if we had to choose one of them. Like, if I said stuff like, what sex on average has the greater instances of mental illness, alcoholism, and sexual predatoriness, right?
Well,
Like,
mental illness is women, right? But
no.
alcoholism is men, right?
I think mental illness is also men. I think
Well, I'm not sure that I know depression is definitely women.
Well, if we looked at, I would have to look at the statistics specifically, but I bet, here's what I would bet. I would bet that if you collect the big offenders, so anxiety, depression, and
Yeah, depression is the biggest mental illness, and I think women win that one.
Okay, well, I would look back, but even just things like who's more likely to sexually abuse their
Men.
child, right? You know, so is that, if I ask that question in this kind of context, right, what does that insinuate but to say that maybe
Men have testosterone. That's what it insinuates. I mean, like when I look for babysitters for my children, I just look for females. Why take chances? You dirty men, get out of my house.
Yeah, and
although I might accept Nathan and you.
I don't think you should. I mean, not for the reasons we discussed earlier, but I can barely take care of myself. But
yeah, you're right. I take that back.
But I don't know. Like, what's the greater question was, right now, if you know the Black community is suffering, what best explains that? You want to do? Is it your position that what best explains that is single motherhood rate amongst the Black community?
Yeah.
So what are the alternative explanations on that we should consider or that you've looked into?
One alternative explanation is systemic racism, that that it's hard for Black people and African Americans specifically in America to get ahead, to get jobs. A lot of it's connections, and they don't have those connections because they don't have the generations of connections of business owners and that sort of thing, because of racism, because of slavery. That's one.
Okay, I think a probably more fundamental explanation for me is going to be the war on drugs. I think that why is it that?
Oh yeah,
Voice?
I don't buy that explanation as much, because the explanation I gave, I think, is more likely than that one, because and I ran this thought experiment with a previous caller on a different live show, but I think if you take certain cultures, and I use the Jewish one, so let's say I'm an evil dictator and my goal is to kill Jews. Sorry, YouTube. This is a hypothetical. And I flooded a certain Jewish community in, I don't know, California or New York, whatever, with a certain type of drug that if they OD a little,
Cyclone B.
yeah, whatever. I would.
But can I clarify? Can I clarify something?
Yeah.
My explanation is compatible with yours. Because let's just say single motherhood households no good. But why are there single motherhood households? Right? It's because of things like mass incarceration, war on drugs. This obsession with like what is it? The
Prison,
theory of
industrial complex, slavery.
well that, but the retributive this mindset is like set in our justice system. Like you just deserve X, Y, Z.
Well, let me finish my
sentence rather than like. Fine.
Yeah, let me finish my retort to you, the war on drugs thing. The point I was making is that certain cultures you could flood with drugs and it wouldn't impact them, at least not to the same degree. Now the question is, why is that? And my answer was because a sense of identity, a sense of tradition. The Jewish culture has something about them that the kids would not partake, not do the drugs. So let's say there was an evil plan to get African Americans in jail, and by flooding their neighborhoods with drugs, I would still blame the African American before I'd blame that evil CIA person for doing that.
I think Danny's talking about the culture there though as well. When Danny says like the war on drugs, he doesn't mean that it's just the presence of drugs in those communities. Like he means that there's these like economic and cultural conditions that predispose people in that community to participate in a culture of,
right,
like,
but I'm saying
selling,
but I'm saying
using,
but I'm saying that even you could put all else equal, like in terms of poverty, the economic situation, a different culture might behave differently.
Well, I think at that point it becomes an identical culture though, and just a person with a different skin tone.
Because you can have two very different cultures with the same household income, right?
Well, yes, you can. Though I think what I'm sort of suggesting is you kind of like swap out a lot of like all the cultural things, like how people think about drugs, how they think about like status in the community they're in and stuff like that. So one problem with the Black community, for example, might be thinking about status in terms of like how you appear to other men who are in these gangs and stuff, right? Whereas that might not be a problem for someone who's in a Jewish community. But I'm thinking if you kind of swap those cultural things out, it's not the person being Black or being a Jew that makes them that way. It's the kind of situation, the culture that.
But what's the difference between, let's say, economically everything's the same? What's the difference between let's even zero in more narrower? A family that says no to drugs, the kids say no to drugs, they say no to gangs, versus kids raised in a family that say yes. And the economics is the same.
The culture would be different.
Right. And what about that culture?
It could be a lot of things, but probably it would, I mean, like it could just be a sense of taboo around those things, right? It might not even be very well thought through. It might just be
and where's that sense of taboo come from? I would say
strictness of parents, probably.
Yeah, I would say fundamentally it comes from most of the time religion, but not always. But more importantly, a sense of identity of who you are. And
yeah, I wouldn't disagree.
And so,
but I'm also talking about like how we react to families or individuals that choose, to engage in, I guess. I mean, there's a difference between saying it's because of drugs versus the war on drugs. I'm saying how law enforcement and prison sentencing react to the people that, let's say, act irresponsibly. I think that those I want to stress the kind of cycle of like of incarceration and how that impacts fathers and such like that we can do something about that, at least on the legal, like, systemic level.
But you would agree that the government doesn't force people to take drugs?
Yeah, I mean, but the government decides to send you to the government sends you to 20 years in prison if you distribute, right? Like, I don't know about.
Right. The government doesn't force people to distribute drugs either.
I think there's a general point of disagreement here, though, in the way that we sort of like conceptualize or think about these types of problems, where I think for you, Doug, it's very easy to just think about the individual in isolation, right? And then it's like, well, an individual can make any particular choice, and so they should just make the right choice for themselves. And so that's about what they're taught, whatever. Whereas I think for Danny and I, it's more about thinking about a kind of systemic whole. So rather than a person just being an individual, a person is kind of like constrained by a particular situation that they're in, and you've got to think about those contextual things of the systems that a person's contained in, rather than just that individual.
Right, but the thing is, we have counterfactual evidence for that. Like, we have people being put into very similar situations and reacting differently, and the question is why. And communities, cultures, basically are made up of subcultures, subcommunities, and it all boils down. And this is, why I lean right. It all boils down to the individual. To me, you have, let's say, 1, 2, or 3 individuals within the community who, let's say, make, in quotes, the right choices, and they have an impact that can be a good virus. They can spread, and it can have a huge impact on their immediate surroundings. And so it has to start somewhere. And I think bottom up is more effective than top down.
So what a culture is vague, but I don't know what the evidence is that you're referring to, because a lot of the evidence that I'm aware of that sociologists tend to look at actually shows things like people's economic circumstances playing the biggest.
Oh yeah, I agree with that. I'm not denying that. I'm just saying, like, if you want to isolate culture, then you got to keep economics the same. But
I think economics and culture are sort of quite closely tied together. I wouldn't say that it's just like there's like a culture of wealth or of having enough money and of being able to get
because you're gonna
that's a part of.
No, I see what you're saying to some sense. Like, if you're really wealthy, you have this, you go to certain restaurants, you tend to like certain music, but even then, I mean, certain music, really, certain foods, really, like, Steve Jobs wore tennis shoes and was pretty down to earth.
But he didn't worry about like having to steal for food, right? Or like how he was gonna impress other males around him by like stabbing someone or something, because that was the only way to like make anything of yourself in the circumstance that he saw himself in, something like that, right?
Yeah,
even
there's very few people in the United States who steal for food.
But I think there are a lot of facets of this, but I think the facet that
for hunger,
I don't want to ignore is I think that I was trying to stress earlier was this the culture of punishment, that I'm suspicious of why we punish and how we punish, and I think that contributes to a lot of the plight as seen in the and amongst poor people and minorities. Is this I just look at punishment as part of this part of the issue here with respect, to let's look at the Black community or the Hispanic community, or the poor whites. What do you think about the way we punish in the United States, Pinecreek?
I agree. Like, if a white person and a black person do the exact same crime, have the exact same background, like criminally speaking, they should get the same punishment. And if they
but that's not.
I know, and if that's not happening, that's wrong.
But that's still an issue for me. Like, I'm saying, okay, let's just pretend that they get punished the same way.
Yeah.
Right. The question is, why are we punishing, especially when it comes to drug offenses?
Well,
right?
Yeah, I agree. I tend to agree that a lot of the drug laws should be just taken away.
Yeah, and I think that contributes a lot to the kind of issues that we're wondering why.
But here's my prediction. You could take all the drug laws away tomorrow, and I would predict, and I would be willing to bet real money on it, that you would still have problems within certain communities, and it might be different types of crimes, but it wouldn't fix the problem.
Well, I would have to think about that, but I guess there are two obvious things that would do. The first one is more Black men would be with their families. Right?
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Most of of people that are in prison, like, or proportionally speaking, I should say, are black men, right? Like, black men.
I
Are
know, but you're assuming
overrepresented.
that if they get out of prison, they would go back to their family.
I think that's very likely. I think
What makes
black
what makes you think that's likely?
well, I think typically now if you want to study, I'm gonna just take an L on this one. But like the point, I would assume it's an assumption that black men that are fathers in prison do care about the fact that they have children. I mean,
Yeah, that's the granola crunching tree hugging coming out of you.
okay, well,
And then it's not
the
just
thing-
black people. I would say people who have been in the jail system and then get their freedom. I would be willing to bet a lot of them, I don't know what percentage, but a big percentage would not go back to their families because it's tough raising a family.
Okay, well, that remains to be seen. I don't want, but the second thing it would do is the felon status is poisonous, right? Like that is probably, I would argue that's probably the biggest issue, is that you know, some kind of felony regarding marijuana, you're branded, right? You're branded in society. You're less likely to get hired. That is such a destructive mechanism.
I agree with you there. I agree. I think if criminals, number one, a lot of these laws shouldn't be crimes at all. But even like you can't change the past. Go in the future. If someone's done the time, paid their bill to society, they should not have this negative stigma. They should be allowed to, like, an employer should hopefully look beyond that and at least give this person a chance.
Yeah. To me, I mean, how would you weigh how would you weigh as a bigger issue? Single motherhood, or at least in the black community, let's say, single motherhood, or the status of felon that
Single motherhood.
affects black. Okay. I think I lean towards the status of felon. I think that's probably more destructive.
Can you guess?
But
Can you guess
I could be
why?
wrong.
Can you guess why I gave my answer? Like based on what I've said so far.
Well, because I am guessing because you think that single motherhood produces felons.
Yes.
It's kind of weird though, because I think if you force those fathers to stay around, right, without that mindset shift, they wouldn't be, even if they were like still around as fathers technically, it's still that like cultural problem of what is valued by those men and things like that.
Yeah,
right? And that's almost underlying the
right
fatherhood and the crime issue a little.
But it's like that video. I don't know. You guys came late, but that video I showed of that African American talking, who never went to jail, and he's saying the reason why is because I had a dad in the home. And when mom said, when the street lights go off, you are in your room, and the dad enforced that rule. And he said a lot of his friends that he grew up with didn't have a dad to enforce a rule like that, and they ended up doing life in prison.
Yeah, I wanted to respond to because you lean towards single motherhood, I lean towards the status of felon. I mean, it might be that. Let's just grant it. You could be right. I'm not a. There's a lot to learn from me here. This is out of my comfort zone. But let's just grant that single motherhoods do produce a lot of felon status citizens.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The point, obviously, though, that they don't contribute 100%. So if you had to choose between what to remedy, right? If you remedy the single motherhood thing, you're only going to get rid of a subset of potential felons, right? Whereas if you just
No, in the long term, if you're looking long term, more than one generation, you would probably get rid of most of it.
Okay,
if I'm right about the primary cause, you would get rid of most of it. Yeah.
So even if it's a great majority of contribution from coming from single mothers, the point is that if you just get rid of the felon status, that's going to account for the other minority percentage that's not accounted on single motherhood, right?
Yeah, it could help. Yeah, but I don't.
So that's
we just
why I would think it
disagree.
have a bigger impact.
We just disagree on which has a bigger impact and would make a bigger difference.
Okay, I guess I was going to think of an analogy of, I guess imagine, I have to think of the analogy, and I'm driving right now. But like, I guess the idea that I'll just put it without the analogy, is like you want to get rid of a primary cause to some effect that that is, we agree is horrible, but that effect is produced by multiple causes outside the primary causes. So if you can just control the symptom, the effect, right, then you're going to, and if that's the issue, in terms of the surface, I hope maybe someone can put together, because now this Corvette is distracting.
You're driving a Corvette?
Overtake him. Danny, downshift, smash the accelerator, and get ahead.
Oh my gosh! But I mean, like, I guess, like,
how can you afford a Corvette? They drink so much fuel.
I don't have a Corvette. I'm saying there's a Corvette in front of me.
Oh, okay.
Okay, now, and my wife is like, I've been driving slower, and I can't. Maybe I should call back. Okay.
Yeah, focus on the road. Call back.
All right, I'll leave y'all to it then. I might come back if you're still here.
Don't die, Danny.
Bye, guys.
See ya. So on the issue of equity and meritocracy, I think this is a big problem in the United States of, like I gave the example of lowering standards to get into the military because you want more diversity, more women in. And I say that's bad. What say you?
I'm basically on board with that, right? I think it's not clear-cut in all cases, because there are some places where you can sort of explain the difference because of something that's called efficacy in psychology, which is like where people don't see people like them going into a certain career, so they choose not to go into that career. But I think in cases of like fitness standards and things for the military, right, like that's just a hard physical, like you have to be able to carry this much weight this far in this much time, because that is what the job description is, right?
Okay, now,
and
okay, yeah. Would you apply, you said, you gave a good reason, because of the physicalness, you just have to be able to carry certain things, and men can carry more things than women.
And also for like budget wise, so I know in the UK we did a review, and because women have lower bone density, they get more pelvic fractures during training, and it would cost a lot more to recruit women into infantry roles than it would men. Because they'd be dealing with, because if you're in the army on that contract, you get like all the treatment and stuff like that. So it just costs that much more. It was like a financial decision of no.
Okay, so now let's apply this to higher education and university. We're not talking about physicalness, but we're talking about mental aptitude. Like, do you think we're all equal in our ability to memorize, to understand?
No, I think there's a difference.
I'm not talking about men and women here. I'm just talking about in general humans.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, in general, like, but between different groups, right? Between like different racial groups, different income groups, things like that. There's all sorts of differences in those types of things.
Okay, now, so would you be willing to lower the standards to get into higher education to allow for certain minority groups or gender groups or whatever?
In some cases, yes.
You would be for it or against it?
I'd be for it in some cases, yeah.
In which cases would you be for it?
I think income backgrounds. So I think that, I mean, I don't know as much about the US, but definitely in the case of the UK, the elite universities basically cater to people from like very well-off backgrounds, right? And I think that then discourages a lot of people from lower income backgrounds from getting into those positions. And I think that having programs and things that are specifically catered to people from those backgrounds is a good thing, because then it promotes social mobility, like up and down.
Okay, so let's say I am the dictator of Harvard, and I agree with you, and I say, yeah, that's bad. We shouldn't even look at people who used to go here to Harvard and their kids. We won't even look at.
Oh yeah, that thing in the US is.
Yeah, we won't even look at that. But let's say I was to say, in order to get in Harvard, no exceptions, you have to be in the 97th percentile of the GRE. Would you be for that or against that?
I think it's a difficult one, right? Because part of the problem is that how people perform on the GRE basically there's an element of it which is your intelligence, right? But there's also an element of it which is how much you prepared and trained for it. So, for example, like memorizing a vocabulary list or practicing a certain style of questions. And your score gets bumped significantly if you've trained for a particular period of time. And kids from those wealthier backgrounds are being trained on that in a way that kids from less privileged backgrounds aren't being trained for those types of tests, right? So there's a disparity in how you'll perform on the test that isn't a reflection of innate ability.
Well, wait a minute, you can study for the GRE for free. You can take sample GRE tests on the internet for free.
Oh yeah, it's possible, but I'm talking about what like tends to actually happen, which is kids who are in those like private school programs or like at the really elite universities, whatever, on undergrad programs.
I wasn't in a private school program, and I got 9. I was 92nd percentile.
Okay, so I'm not saying like there's no hard work that you put in or whatever, but I think that this is almost where it can be.
Okay, let's say this. Okay,
yeah,
I hear what you're saying. Let's say I am the dictator of Harvard, but I'm a benevolent dictator who really cares for the poor. So I will only accept people into Harvard who come from families that make less than the average household income in the United States, but they have to have the 97th percentile GRE. Poor people, 97th percentile.
I'm honestly still not sure, just because I think that GRE actually correlates very poorly with like novel research output in academics' careers and the rating of people's PhD theses.
Okay, but that's my problem, right? So, like if that's true, then people will stop coming to my university because they're not getting good jobs afterwards. But
well, it's not true, because people do get good jobs afterwards because of the prestige of Harvard, right?
I know, but if they can't do the job, let's say it's all based on prestige. Eventually, people saying, prestige only goes so far if you can't actually do the task at hand.
Well, I think the problem is that lots of people can do the job of lecturing, right? It's kind of it's oversaturated in terms of the number of people applying for these roles, and then people who get the roles, it's basically based off of who you know and prestige and stuff. And then a point that's being raised in the data is that the actual then research profiles of people who like don't score as well in the GRE or come from universities that aren't as prestigious is sometimes actually better than that of the people who come from those elite universities and have like high GRE scores and things.
Okay, but let's say my goal.
And so the point is then that
But let's say my goal is not to actually produce good workers for the country. Like I just having a rule, an arbitrary rule.
Yeah. If your goal is to have an arbitrary rule, then
but I want you to critique. I want you to critique why this arbitrary rule is bad. Other than that, I mentioned careers like per se when I first started out, but 97 percentile pass in the GRE and below average medium household income.
And what are you trying to achieve? Sorry,
I'm just saying that those are the rules, and you don't know what I'm trying to achieve. But would you be against those rules, and why?
I would be against them personally because I'm assuming that you want to like have a good university, and I think like I know, but if I don't know what it means, like what you're trying to do by having those rules, then I don't know that I could critique them.
So basically, my goal is to get really poor people who really score highly on the GRE into my schools.
then those goals
should work, right?
That satisfies that goal, yeah.
Yeah.
Those rules.
And I actually disagree with you. I think if you were to correlate standard scores on these type of entry exams with income after, let's say 10 years later, there's a pretty strong correlation.
Possibly income, right? But the stuff I looked at was to do with like H indexes and research profiles and things, right? So rather than what people are earning, and I think it probably income it would correlate because the elite universities tend to still have in place like get a high GRE score, and then if you go to an elite university, the name of that university can get you into some sort of like well-off job that earns high.
Because most universities, I think this is going to change, but most universities in the United States do have some type of entrance exam requirement.
A lot of them dropped it during COVID for postgrad programs, but yeah.
And so now here's the next question, and you're smart enough to know where this is going. Would you be against lowering, given a university already has these entrance exams, would you be for lowering the standard hurdle to get looked at as an applicant for certain minorities?
I think so for a time, yeah.
For a time?
Yeah, for a time. So I wouldn't want it to be like, oh, this is how it should be forever. But it would just be to try and promote the kind of like social mobility I'd want to see of people from certain backgrounds.
Okay. Do you see any unintended consequences, negative ones from that?
Yeah, you would be potentially blocking out some sort of like middle-class white people's kids who might otherwise have got in, and that would be sort of unfair to them.
What about other people of color being blocked out? Like
I'm not necessarily
Asians?
sure unless you mean of high income. Oh, right, okay. Yeah, but possibly that as well. Yeah.
Okay, so now we have a problem, right? If your goal is to get certain minority groups into the university to help diversify it, so you lower the standards, and that squeezes out other people of color who have higher grades, higher entrance scores.
Well, this is because I think what you're assuming here is that, like, in general, the sentence like support people of color sort of like emotionally stirs something up in me or whatever. Like, it's not about that for me.
You don't care about Asians, which I'm hearing you say.
I don't. Yeah. It's like I don't care about Asians. I don't care about people of color. Instead, it's more like if I try and take a sort of God's eye point of view on society, I look at certain groups that are disadvantaged, and I think, hey, it would be good for that group to have a whole bunch of people go into like really good careers and have that like feedback into those demographics. And so I want to like try and pull the strings of society in that direction a bit. Even if it harms a few Asians, I think it's overall for the greater good.
Yeah, like usually, like to get into med school, it's not just your entrance exam score, like, or your GPA. It's what you've done in the community, like being able to write well. What if a minority doesn't have any of that? In fact, let's say they come from a criminal background.
Yeah. Again, it sort of depends, right? Like, I think there's obviously going to be a cutoff point somewhere where the university is almost not not going to have the facilities to sort of rehabilitate someone so far. But I think I'm in favor of lowering the standards like to a point. So maybe the person doesn't have perfect work experience or whatever. And you can say, well, look, given the fact that you were in these economic conditions at that age, you didn't have all this free time because you had to work, whatever it is, you can kind of say, so in the case of your application, we're going to let that bit of the standard slide for you.
Okay, now I like thought experiments, as you know. So let's do a thought experiment where, because some universities in the United States, actually a lot of them, have lowered the standards as far as entrance exam scores and that sort of thing for certain groups of people. Let's say we were to do the opposite. So let's say if someone checks the box African or Black, and they're applying to Harvard, and let's say in order to get into a good GRE score is, let's say, the 95th percentile. But if you're Black, you need a 99. It's tougher to get in if you're Black. Let's say if you check the Black box, doing community service or certain extracurricular things, you need double.
It's not enough. You need double.
You need double compared to a white person. Now, so we're reversing everything. What effect would that have in society? Number one, I think you'd get far fewer Black people into the
I agree. Yeah.
Why is it? I paid for this. Why is it saying ending in 5 minutes? Okay. So we're agreed that get far fewer. Yeah. But what would society view? So let's say this person becomes a doctor.
A Black person who did get through, you're saying. Yeah, I think they're like pretty special.
Right. They would say, I want the Black doctor, not this white honky.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
can now reverse it again. Now go back to the original situation.
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah, there's
well, a guy like you would think that. I think most people would just be like, "I'll give me antibiotics for my flu or something," right? Like,
well, it depends on the doctor, but I think this is the unintended consequences of affirmative action. Is people will always have this question mark in their head: are you a lawyer? Are you a doctor? Are you this? Are you that? Solely because you got in because people felt sorry for you.
Well, I understand with that, and I think that this is why this is the difference between sort of like entrance and graduating exams. I think so. I think that for something like being a surgeon, or like being in the army in that particular kind of way, or whatever, there are standards that should be non-negotiable for performing that role. The point that we're talking about is the access to the training for that field, and so what I'm saying is I think that those entrance standards should perhaps be like lowered for a time for people of certain backgrounds, but I don't think the graduation standards should be. But I want to open up those opportunities to people from those less privileged backgrounds, but I don't want to make it easier for them to graduate and like perform brain surgery or whatever, right? Just because they're from that background. I think that should then stay the same.
Okay. Well, I better let you go before we get cut off. I don't know why it's doing this. I guess it didn't automatically renew my credit card.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe you've gone bankrupt. Maybe it's the US, the debt. You defaulted on the debt, and now.
Oh, by the way, let me bother you before you leave. Okay. I looked up first quarter 2023 GDP in Great UK versus Euro. UK did better.
Okay.
UK did better.
Not better than Ireland.
Well, I don't know about that. Well, isn't the UK part of Ireland? I mean, Ireland part of the UK?
Northern Ireland is, but the Republic of Ireland is performing very well, basically because they can trade with Europe and Britain in a sort of unique way that no one else can. But yeah, I mean, I'd have to look at the data more in depth, but I don't think there's anything that positive to come out of our economic decisions recently.
Yeah. Anyhow, have a good day.
Yeah, cool.
Take care.
Right, cheers, Doug. Bye. Bye.
Oh. Just getting rolling, but my whereby is dying. He hasn't left this chat. I put him in timeout. Smink. Yeah, see, look at, he's not too bad, I guess. But look at here. Smink, 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 smink. Like even I, who likes to type in live stream chats, smink, smink. You gotta allow at least one or two people to comment before you comment again. This is just common sense. If you had a father, you would know this. Oh, oh, Jerome Robinson, 3 in a row. Careful now. Northern Ireland, Nathan said. Why do people argue? Why are people's arguments always, I think this, I think that, instead of this is how it works, this is what the data seems to show? Excellent question. Like, let's, why don't we look at some data, shall we? Let's look up, what data should we look up? Let's make this Fun Fact Saturday. Single parent correlation to crime. Images. Why is this all fuzzy? Single parent homes are dropping. What's this one? What's the source of this? Children's rate of exposure to neighborhood violence by family type. Both married parents, 36%. Never married mother, 102%. No, not 102%, not percent. This is just numbers. Per what? Per 1,000. So even cohabiting is better than single motherhood. How come they don't have never married father in here? I'd love to see that number. Do it by race. What's this? Doing this on the fly. Why is there gaps? Non-marital birth rate. So having kids out of wedlock, basically. National is this dark blue line. So I would say anything above this line is bad. Latinos, you're bad. Native Americans, you're worse. And black, you're even more worse. Oh, you can't say that, Doug. Stop it. Non-Latino, white, Asian. Asians. Good for you. Yay, Asians. People of color. Asians. But it is dipping down. See, that's this is why I'm optimistic. Although it dipped down here as well and then went back up. When it went back up during the Obama administration. Oopsies. Oopsies. What other facts do you guys want to see? Quit picking on the African Americans. What is this? I had a cold a while back and still coughing up phlegm. What is this? Oh, it goes all the way back to 1960? Oh, percent of family households with female householder only. It was kind of flat, 1960, 1965, and then single mother homes rose, violent crime. It's trying to show a correlation. We see a big drop here. When did abortion become legal? Wasn't it in the late 70s? When was it late 70s? Isn't this like 10 years, a generation after abortion became legal, we saw a drop in violent crime? Just saying, but then went back up. Jewish is a religion. It's not an ethnicity or culture. It can be both, Ezra. Don't tell me you're a Jew and you know better. Because I'm a Mennonite. I'd say I'm Mennonite culturally, but not religiously, because I'm an atheist. There's many atheistic Jews. Some of my best friends are Jews and Muslims. Let's look at some more facts. Household income by race. Peter P. Peterson Foundation. Thank you, Peter. Medium household income by race, ethnicity of household. Normalized to $2021. Starting 1988 to, looks like 2021, maybe 2022. Asians make the most, then whites. Average is here. Hispanics down here, blacks down here. People of color for the win. There's a lot of Asians who feel guilty about this chart. Well, this is because people coming from rich Asian countries into the United States. There's a lot of rich black people coming from African countries and other countries into the United States too. You didn't know that. You didn't. It's like saying atheist Catholic. Oh, well, I'm an atheist Calvinist. Didn't you know? Come on, Ezra. You got to admit, if you're a Jew with, and I think you are a Jew because your name is Ezra, right? There's no such thing as a person named Ezra who's not a Jew, right? Surely you know some Jewish atheists, atheist Jews. Heck, I know two off the top of my head. I play poker with them. But one of them for sure would, I think, call himself a cultural Jew. I don't use my real name or face in the internet. It's probably smart. Any other facts you guys want to see? Let's see here. Affirmative action requirements. Harvard. %30 of Harvard freshmen are legacy kids, so their parents went there. Oh, what's this? From the Atlantic. $1995, 2009. This is old. 68% white, 77, 62. 18 to 24% of freshmen. Whites were 9% overrepresented at the most selective schools in 1995. In 2009, they were 13% overrepresented. Oh, it's getting worse. I mean, better or worse. Wait a minute. Do we want more whites or less whites? We want less whites, right? It's getting worse. %7 black, 8% Hispanic. What is it in 2022, though? Harvard entrance by race. Let's see here. This one only goes up to 2013. What is this? Average Harvard admittance rate. 8.1% of Asian Americans who apply to Harvard get in, but 13.2% of African Americans get in. 11% white, a little less Hispanic. Poor Asians. Feel sorry for them. Come on, Asians, step it up. Just need like a few more hours a week of violin lessons and you'll get in. Just do a little bit better on the GRE, on the SAT, on the LSATs, MCATs. Come on. It's your fault. Accept the things you can't control. Don't cry about it. What is this? The effects of removing race requirements. This is interesting. How can I make it bigger? I don't understand this. Actual admitted class of 2019, removing consideration of race. So if you remove the consideration of race, more white people get in, more Asians get in, less Hispanics get in, less blacks, African Americans get in. So this is quantifying for affirmative action. But it doesn't look like affirmative action makes much of a dent. Only 3%. Sorry. Well, no, it does make a dent. Because African Americans without affirmative action would be cut almost into a third. Hispanics would be cut 2/3. I like to have stats about how relevant are the holy trinity of modernity, aka anti-racism, anti-fascism, anti-queer, whatever, is to other country politics outside of the US and Europe. Well, there's a mouthful, Ezra. Well, unfortunate for you, I only have Google and you don't. If somehow we could get Google to you, you could look this up for yourself. Or what you're saying is maybe the data is not out there. Whoa, loud. Here's a good question. I'd like to know your thoughts about when it is appropriate to use feelings to make decisions. It seems like you criticize feelings a lot, but you surely rely on them as well. Oh yeah, I'm human, unfortunately. Unfortunately, I'm human. When is it appropriate to use feelings to make decisions? When deciding which musical to watch? When deciding what movie to watch? When deciding what music to listen to? You should not use your feelings, rely on your feelings for how to build a house. The foundation, the structure of the house. You might use your feelings for the aesthetics of the house. Yeah, coitus. You use your feelings when deciding who to have coitus with. That's what Jerome Robinson does. That's how he decides who to have coitus with. He feels something inside him growing. Not outside him. Yeah, exactly, Jeff's daughter. So, Sapir Odd, I know you're a very touchy-feely guy. And we need people like you. I mean, we need people like you to tell guys like me what type of slacks to wear, what type of turtleneck to wear, what looks good, what's fashionable, what in really running the world and society, you know, leave it to the non-feely types. Hey, but let me, I was joking, but maybe not. But I do think there's something to be said about intuition. I think sometimes intuition and feelings are the same. Now, your intuitions can be very, very, very wrong. But I wouldn't say you ignore your intuitions, ignore your feelings. But for me personally, I take my feelings and I pretend that it's like aluminum foil and I wrap it into a very tiny ball. And I take that tiny ball of aluminum foil feelings and I stick it into that little corner of my heart. And when that corner gets full, I stuff a little more. And then when it gets so full, then I tell people like Baked Alaska never to call into my show again. True story. This is why you love me, Sapirod. Because I can mock and ridicule you and you'll still love me. Intuitionism is a branch of moral cognitivism. Too many big words. Feelings drive us to what to investigate. Remove as many possible when drawing conclusions. Yeah, you're right, how long? I'm serious, you're right. I feel bad for BA, for Baked Alaska. Well, that's because you have too many feelings, Michael Bedlam. You know he's over 40, right? You know he's a grown man and you feel sorry for him that a guy on the internet said don't call back? Come on. Poof.